Hmm.
बस ये है ना और थोड़ा कुछ है ना देखो ताकत थोड़ा
नहीं. Can you hear me? Uka? Can you see my video? Okay.
आई हूँ जब बाहर ट्रांसफर
अरे मतलब
निकाल के मैंने वही
all right, last confirmation. Can you hear me and can you see my video? Please confirm. I'll wait for another 2 minutes so that people can join in. All right, just 2 more minutes and then we should be live. I mean, we're already live, but we'll begin. I've been having a lot of power issues today. It's raining terribly outside. And then there was some power outage from the authorities as well. So in my society, in my community, there's been a lot of power issues. To be very honest, from morning itself, I ran out of backup power. I think around 12 p.m. India time. I'm on the backup power from now. I mean, last 2 3 hours, but eventually power was fluctuating a lot in last 1 hour or so, and then that's why my uh, network or my router just couldn't cope up with the fluctuations, and that's where it got completely shut down. So sorry about that. All right, let's wait 1 more minute, and then we will resume the session. Okay. Meanwhile, who have already joined, please open VMware um, and have your ISO Windows Server 2019 ISO ready. We will begin from there. As I confirmed, we'll be doing a quick refresher of what we did last week, wherein we will install a Windows Server 2019. We will configure its network. We'll configure Active Directory on that. I'll be right back in 1 minute, and then we will begin. All right, guys, I'm back. Really sorry for the trouble for past half an hour. Really sorry about that. So today's session we are going to cover some refresher of last week, and then we will explore the Active Directory use in computers. We're going to join some domains. Join some machines to the domain. We'll look a deep dive into Active Directory DNS, and we will look at the management tools within Active Directory. So I'm going to start my screen share. Do let me know if you can see that. Right. Let me know if you can see my screen and you can hear me as well at the same time. Forget my video if that's not clear. But so yeah, sorry. Forget my video if that's not clear. Let's leave that aside. But let me know if you can see my screen clearly and you are able to comprehend and replicate on your site as well. This will be a pure live session where we do all the stuff. So in VMware, go to File, click on New Virtual Machine. Under virtual machine, there are two options of installation. One is typical, the custom is advanced, wherein we'll use using custom so that we can configure the machine as per our choice, hardware, RAM, storage, and all that. We're going to click on next. It tells us what version of VMware it is running, how much support does it have, like 128 gigabytes of RAM, 32 processors it can support, 10 network adapters, 8 terabyte disk size, and all. Click on next, select your Windows Server 2019 ISO. Uh, those who have already installed Windows Server and it is running right now on VMware, those do not need to do it. For people who could not do it last week, just do that. For people who have already done it, watch the screen share. It will be a rehearsal for you. Yeah. So that is my ISO Windows Server 2019. I'm going to click on next. I don't need to provide any product key over here. The version of Windows, as I explained in my last video, we have two types of Windows Server 2019 versions. One is standard, the other is data center. We're going to select data center. Then we select the full name of the account that will be used for the first login. Provide a password for that. Click on next. It will say you did not enter product key because you're using evaluation version. This is just going to be a lab, which means we are not going to activate the Windows. Then give the virtual machine a name. I'm going to name that as DC1 hyphen work. Select the location where the virtual machine would be stored. Um, this should be a hard drive because eventually this virtual machine is going to be using your local hardware and any kind of firmware or any kind of devices that you have on your local machine. It's going to utilize those features. So I'm going to select my external hard drive that I have over here. I prefer SSD, so I have a 2 terabyte SSD separately connected to my laptop. For you, if you don't have a hard drive external, choose your local hard drive or local disk partitions should you have any. Then click on OK. Then it will show you the virtual machine name that you selected and the location for it. Click on next. Click on UEFI and check the box for secure boot. Click on next. Give it the required processors and the number of cores for it. If you have an i5 processor, so how do you set this option over here? Just go to your task manager. In your task manager, go to processes. I'm sorry, go to performance. Select your CPU. It will tell you how many cores you have on your local PC. So if you have two cores on your local PC, in your VMware, select number of processors as one and number of cores as two. If you have four core processor, select number of processors as two and number of cores as two. Next, click on next and then specify the memory this virtual machine is going to use. Again, this is a shared resource over here, which means this virtual machine is going to occupy use your local hardware RAM. So if you have 8 gigabytes of RAM on your local PC, specify 2 gigabytes for this virtual machine. If you have more than 8 gigabytes, specify 4 gigabytes for this machine. That'll be 4096. You can manually specify that as well. Also, this virtual machine, you can manipulate or change the resources which will be used for this, like RAM and hard disk. You can always increase or decrease as per your requirement, or even the processor cores as well. So, should you want to reduce the number of processor cores or increase the number of threads for it, you can always do that. But that ensure that the virtual machine is turned off. Only then you can make those changes. Click on next. Use network address translation. Click on next. LSI logic. Click on next. It's going to use NVMe hard disk because I have a external SSD. If you don't have an SSD, it will probably you need to select a CSI disk or SATA. Then click on next. Create a new virtual disk. Next. Specify the storage this virtual machine will require. So I'll specify 35 gigabytes. Split virtual disk into multiple files. That should be the option that should be selected. Click on next. This is the name of the virtual machine that is specified in step number 4. Click on next. This is going to tell you all the configuration that you have specified. Once you click on finish, it will start the virtual machine as if it's going to start a computer, and the installation process will begin. Let me know if there are any challenges up until now. As you can see, Windows has started to install on the machine that I have. If you remember the last step in the step in the last video, wherein I specifically selected the setting this virtual machine, right click the virtual machine settings and ensure that your floppy drive is disconnected, or else you get that licensing error, the EULA, end user license agreement, that will give the error. Ensure that you disconnect your floppy drive for Windows Server before the installation begins. Now the Windows Server installation screen over here, we'll click on next and click on install now. Setup is starting. It will not be like last time because last time my camera was occupying a lot of GPU, and that is why the video and my computer was completely hanging up. Today it will not happen because I'm using degraded versions of video. My video doesn't really add value to it. The content, the learning, that's what's important for this video. Now, as you can see on my screen, I've selected Windows Server 2019 Data Center Evaluation, the desktop experience option. Make sure you always select desktop experience. Um, the core options over here, which do not display the desktop experience, it means those are Windows Server core, meaning you can only use code, or you can only use command prompt or PowerShell to manage or do anything on that server. Desktop experience gives you a visualized way of managing things as if you're using a desktop Windows machine, like your clients like Windows 7, 10, 11. Similarly, you'll have the Windows Server as well. The core option, the other option does not show the desktop experience. Those are for advanced uh, system administrators who use code and PowerShell and command from a lot compared to GUI way. but since this is the beginning, I assume people are freshers or people with level 1 or level 2 level knowledge will select desktop experience. Then click on next. Click on I accept the license agreement. Click on next. This is the fresh installation. So we'll select custom option. It shows the disk space that we allocated for the same. It was 35 gigabytes when we specified during VMware installation for the or the configuration that we set up before the Windows was installed. This server was installed. So 35 gigabytes was the size that time. We'll select that and click on next, and then it will start the installation process. This will probably take somewhere around 10 minutes, I guess, and then we'll complete the Active Directory installation after that. Now, while this is ongoing, I just want to give you a brief history about Windows servers. Windows servers were introduced in the year 2000. Then we had Server 2003, then 2008. 2003 came with a R2 as in a release 2. What are releases? Releases are nothing but the versions of Windows Server. So any kind of new enhancement or product updates or features that have changed in different versions of Windows servers, they come through a release or uh, like a cumulative update. So we had 2003, 2003 R2, then we had 2008, then we had 2008 R2. Similarly, we had 2012, and then 2012 R2. After that, Microsoft introduced a way of doing CU based instead of going with the release mode. So, with 2016, they had just standard and data center. Then we have 2019 standard and data center again. Same goes with Windows Server 22 as well, and we have 2025 as well, which probably has gone into public, or maybe it's going into public in a couple of weeks. Um, you can understand the scenario basis how your machine used to be. Um, if you remember, you guys must have used Windows 7 or even Windows XP as well. So Windows XP was initially introduced just as Windows XP. Then we had Service Pack 1 and Service Pack 2. Similarly, we have Windows 7, and Windows 7 Service Pack 1. We had Windows. I didn't use Vista a lot, so I directly upgraded from Windows 7 to Windows 10. That was like 9 years back, 2016. Um, we had Windows 10, but it was with different editions instead of service packs, like Home, Professional, and Enterprise. Similarly, we have Home, Professional, and Enterprise for Windows 11 as well. So that is how you can understand the patches and new feature upgrades were introduced in the earlier version of Windows, be it Windows clients or Windows servers. Nowadays, in like ever since you can say from Windows 10 onwards, I think that was year 2016. Similarly, with the case of Windows servers, that was Windows Server 2016, which was introduced in 2015. In the year 2015, Microsoft got away from the way of doing service packs and different versions. Instead of that, they had different set of features in different versions of Windows. So you may see in Windows 10 Home a lot of features. It's a very customized way of using things, how somebody needs different features, or how a window should be customized as per needs. So they have three different versions like Windows 10 Home, then Windows 10 Professional, and then Windows 10 Enterprise. So the highest features would be available in Enterprise, then slightly less features with the Windows 10 Pro, and then a very start way, or you can say very uh, minimized way of using Windows was in Windows 10 Home. You'll probably find very less features in Windows 10 Home compared to Windows 10 Professional and Windows 10 Enterprise. Same is the case with Windows 11 as well. Now, in the world of IT, we always have a client which end users use. We always have a server which admins use, and then we have a layer of medium or the bridge, the connection between these servers and clients. This is called as a three-way handshake. You have a client, you have a server, and then you have the network that connects them. This is called as three-way handshake. Um, then uh, you can say that whatever applications end users use in day-to-day life within the company or outside of it, those are applications which are actually running on some sort of server. So you might have heard, sometimes in your life you might have experienced, you go to some office, some uh, some place wherein you need to get some work done. For example, banks, right? You go to a bank, a lot of time you must have hear them saying, server is down, or the server is not responding or not reachable. It eventually is not the application that they are using, because they are the end users. Eventually that application is running somewhere on one of the servers which is distributed across the company, and the end users access to it. And that is when they say, the server is down or is not responding, it's actually meaning that the application which is running, the actual application is running on the server, that is not responding, or that server is not responding. At the time this is actually true. Uh, Behind the scenes, IT plays a very crucial or critical role in any organization's success. Without IT, no business or enterprise or any application across the globe would survive. And that is why IT professionals are treated in a way wherein their job is very crucial and critical for the success of the company. Now, because we all are end users, every now and then we are using some sort of product or application, but essentially behind the scenes, there is an application, a server responsible for it, which is actually running on some of the data center or some of the servers, wherever the manufacturer has placed that server, or wherever they have placed that server to run and accustomed to end users' needs. So that was just a brief about client server architecture. Then, what are applications? What are servers? Now, once this installation is complete, it's almost about to complete in next 2 or 3 minutes. The server is going to be up and running. The next step will be configuring IP address of the server for promoting this server to a domain controller, so that Active Directory domain services can be configured. And we can create a lab environment, a small lab environment, wherein there'll be a Windows server, will be a client machine that we will be using, and then we'll be configuring a client server architecture in a short nutshell. While this is complete, you guys have any questions, please paste that in the chat. As you can see, it's completing the installation now. It's going to install the updates. Um, let's wait for the 2 minutes. Thank you for responding. It's going to restart the server. I'm going to directly restart that. Now just a quick settings over here, and the server should be up and running. Meanwhile, because for this lab exercise, we will be needing a client machine as well. We have just configured just Windows Server. We'll be using Windows Client as well. So I'm going to share a link right over here in the chat box as well as on the group on where you can download the Windows 10 ISO. Just like we downloaded the Windows Server 2019 ISO, we'll be downloading Windows 10 ISO as well for the lab activity that we'll be doing today. So on your local machine, okay, my screen is not visible. Just one second. Now select this option over here. The link I have given that in the chat as well as this is going to open this page for you, the Windows installation media. You need to click on create Windows 10 installation media over here. Click on download now. This tool will help you actually create the ISO. Click on the download application. There is this media creation tool, and then click yes. This is the screen that you should be able to see that says Windows 10 setup, getting a few things ready. Meanwhile, I think our server should be up and now. Yes, it is up and running now. We will give the password for it, the one that we, or you can choose any over here. Now the server is up and running. Going to log into the server. Make sure because first server in the environment and it should be promoted as a domain controller. It's like setting up an organization from the scratch. Those servers exist because this is going to be the server by default. This is your DNS server as well. In case you're not sure about the what is DNS and how DNS works, please go and watch the previous session that I posted a couple of days back regarding how DNS works, the tier top level domain servers, what are root servers, what are authoritative servers, how does it work in the DNS resolution, and how the DNS flow, or what are building blocks of the DNS resolution. Select yes for the network count over here. Then, as I explained in my last video, we have to give a static IP for this server because it's going to be the first server. I mean, as I said, to promote over to a domain controller, you need to have static IP. Also, this will be your DNS server as well, which means it needs to have static IP by default. To check what is the current IP assigned to it, go to run command and open command prompt. Once you open command prompt, type ipconfig and hit enter. It will tell you the current assigned IPv4 address to the server, and it will tell you what is the default gateway. Now we're going to use the same IP address, but we will choose that same IP address as a static. Now type ncpa.cpl. This will open the network connections for you. Go back to command prompt, the IP address from here. Right click on Ethernet, go to properties, go to IPv4 properties, select use the following IP address and paste the IP that you copied from command prompt. Subnet mask by default, because it's a class C IP, it's going to be default as 255.255.255.0. In the gateway address, as you can see, it is 192.168.93.2. It will be different for you. Paste that over here as well. Then in the preferred DNS server option, because as I said, this server is going to be your first server in the environment, domain control, as it will be playing the role of Active Directory DNS as well. So we need to set up this server as an authoritative DNS server, and it has to have the same IP address of its own. We are not going to choose any alternate DNS server over here, and then we'll click on OK and OK. For quick seconds, you'll see that the network connection bar shows an exclamation sign in your taskbar, which means it is connecting the DNS server, which eventually it is the same server. In few seconds, it should be fixed. Before we start with the Active Directory installation, make sure that you change the computer name of the server, because it is not desirable to change the computer name once it is promoted as a domain controller. In short, in a running Active Directory environment, no domain controllers are renamed. They're actually decommissioned completely or dismantled completely before a change is triggered. So to change the computer name, click on type system.cpl. The other ways to do that as well, by going to system properties for your computer. Over here in the computer name section, click on change and then specify the new name. So DC1 hyphen work. Then click on OK. This will give you a prompt that you need to restart your computer for the computer name changes to be completed. Click on OK, then click on close, and then click on restart now. This will restart your computer and the computer name would be changed. It will use the same static IP that we defined for it. Meanwhile, let's go back to your Windows 10 setup over here. Click on accept for the license agreement over here. And then in a couple of next steps, what exactly you want to do? You want to upgrade the machine to a Windows 10, or you want to get a media like an IS file, which will be used um, to, either move a pen drive or a store device. Use that media to install Windows 10 on different machines in years. Because we need an ISO, we are going to create the ISO, which will be used in VMware. Um, I'm not going to proceed with next step. I already have Windows 10 Pro, Windows 10 ISO on my computer. But for you guys, in case you don't have Windows 10 ISO available on your machine, uh, this tool will help you create that. Let's wait for a few more seconds. Once it is ready, start the creation of ISO process, and then we can move back to the Windows Server ISO and we'll proceed with the Active Directory installation. If you have any challenges, any questions up until here. Now, if you see in the Windows 10 setup, it says upgrade this PC now or create installation media. Please make sure you select create install media, DVD or ISO file option, the second option. A lot of people accidentally, unknowingly install the Windows Server 2019 on their laptop itself. That was not what I asked for, instructed you to do. Make sure you just download the ISO or create the ISO and not install it on your machine. These ISOs are for testing and lab purpose only. We will be using these ISOs in a VMware only, not on the local PC. Over here, then click on next. It will tell you what language or edition you need. Architecture should be 64-bit. Uh, If you choose this option, you'll have the option to change in your own language should you want to. By default, it will tell you English, United States, Windows 10 edition, and 64-bit architecture. Click on next and then select the second option of ISO file, which means this ISO file will be downloaded in your computer. Click on next. Now we'll tell you which location you want to store it. I'm just gonna select downloads and I'll name the ISO as Windows 10 ISO and click on save. In a few seconds, it will start the ISO creation. It will download that on your computer. Um, as I said, I already have the Windows 10 ISO. I'm going to cancel this procedure. However, if you guys do not cancel this step, please let it download. Basis to your connection speed, it will download the ISO. It probably take around 10 minutes at max. I'll just do it somewhere, or I'll just minimize this. I think I've already canceled it. You can minimize that, and you can come back to the Windows Server option in your VMware, which has rebooted. The activities that we have performed, we have given this a static IP address, and we've changed the computer name of the Windows Server. Now I'm going to log into the server with my password, username administrator. Now everything is ready for this server to be promoted to a domain controller. In server manager over here, I will proceed the installation. So let's follow the steps in sequential order. All right. It says configure this local server, add roles, and this is the first page that you get. Next, it's a role-based installation because we have to install the Active Directory role on the server. Click on next. We'll leave the computer and the IP address assigned to it. Tell you the operating system and the version. Click on next. So second option, Active Directory domain services. Active Directory has other roles as well. With them is Active Directory domain services, in short ADDS. It also has different roles like ADCS, like certificate services, federation services, which are ADFS. Then have RMS, like Active Directory Right Management Services. We will talk about them in some later videos. For today's session, we'll only focus on Active Directory domain services. We'll now click on next. We're not selling any features over here. We'll just need the default features. However, if you want to add later on in a production environment, there will be sometimes scenarios where you need to add some features as well. So that is when you will select that. But for now, do not select it. You go next. Click on next again. So check the option of restart the destination server automatically if required, which means if the server requires a reboot after the ADDS role is added to the server, when the server is promoted as a domain controller, it will automatically reboot. Click on yes for the checkbox and then click on install. Now ADDS installation has started. In few minutes, the ADDS installation should be completed. We'll wait for that. It may be slightly delayed for you in case you have given less memory on the higher memory, higher uh, processor cores your server has, the better performance and the higher reliability you'll have. But as I said, this is a test environment. We'll only be using whatever we have with us to learn as much as we can. Let's wait for this 80 days installation to be completed. Again, while this is going, if there are any question, please start ping them in the live chat or on the group. All right, the installation for Active Directory is completed. We'll click on close. You'll see that in Server Manager you have an exclamation mark, which means there is a task or an activity that needs your attention. Click on that. It will tell you that ADDS installed. Now you can promote the server to a domain controller. What is a domain controller? As the name suggests, it controls the entire identity and access management of a company within the specified perimeter or network boundaries of that company. For example, you go to an office, on your first day, you get your username and password um, by your IT team. That username and password is only valid within the office network or on the office machines or workstations. That username and password is basically a digital identity for you to gain access to your office computer. That ID or digital identity is managed on the Active Directory domain services by your IT or network administrator. And those are, in short, called as admins of the company. Uh, your identities are stored on the domain controllers. This is where your username, password, or your access are managed. That is the role of Active Directory. It's like a central management of your identity, access, and the authorization that you have to different resources or based on the scope of work as per your work profile that are defined within the company infrastructure. Now we'll click on promote the server to a domain controller. It says add a domain controller to an existing domain. We don't have an existing domain right now. As I said, this is a fresh installation completely from scratch. So we'll select add a new forest. Over here, we'll define the root domain name. What does the root domain name mean? It is the first domain within the company. Now, there are companies which have different domain names. So they have multiple domains within their forest. That means they have one company, and you can label that as umbrella. And within that umbrella, there are sub companies, or you can say subdomains or child domains within the company. Example, Microsoft. In just a hypothetical example, not Microsoft. I mean, Microsoft has different geographical units and different units across the globe. So they will have probably one Active Directory forest, and then below that, there are different geographical regions that Microsoft has, like Microsoft India, Australia, China, and different countries. Those are subdomains or child domain within that bigger umbrella, or that is called as Active Directory forest. Another way of understanding Active Directory forest is like a tree that has different branches. So that tree is the forest over here, different branches, different domains, and then different sub branches of those branches are child domains. But once the first, the tree that grows up, that is called as the root domain. Different branches are subdomains, and different sub branches of those branches are child domains. They all trust each other. They all fall under the one umbrella of Active Directory forest. So we name this root domain as whatever. Uh, Within an infrastructure, this domain name does not need to be valid on the public internet. You can have a different public domain name or same domain name as internal Active Directory forest, but it doesn't have to be this or a valid domain name within your infrastructure. For myself, I've added my domain name over here. It's ankit-shukla.com. You can choose your next, and then you will see the next step wherein it says what is going to be the forest and domain function. We'll talk about that in a different video. But for now, select Windows Server 2016 and Windows Server 2016 both for your forest and main functional level. As I said, this is going to be your DNS server. You can choose to uncheck the option that says domain name system. But since this is going to be your first Active Directory server, we'll ensure that DNS option is checked. It is by default checked. By default, every domain controller is a global catalog. I will explain what is a global catalog. Then you specify the DSRM, that is Directory Service Restore. I explained that in the last video that when you need to have, or whenever you have a disaster situation, or when you need to restore your Active Directory database to a different server, should anything go wrong with your data center, or it's completely dismantled, or there is a ransomware attack, or whatever the case may be, you need to restore the Active Directory server or the Active Directory database, you will need this password. Does not mean it is the same password as your credentials that you'll use for logging to the computer. No, it is not. It is a completely set password. So you can have it as the same as your first administrator, the administrator account have, but it is recommended to have a different password for this DSRM. Specify a password over here, then click on next. Click on next again. Then it will tell you the net BIOS. This is basically a short form. I'll explain what is net BIOS in a little video, but it's just a short form for your domain name. Generally, it will use the just the domain name without the domain extension. So, like Microsoft.com is the forest name. Microsoft would be net BIOS name. You can specify a different net BIOS name as well, should you choose to. But for this activity, will just choose the domain name, that is Ankit-Chukla. I'll not specify the domain extension, that is .com. Click on next. These are the locations where your directory database, the log files, and then the sysvol folder where these files would be stored. By default, these are in C Windows NTDS and C Windows sysvol. However, you can choose a different path if you want. Next over here, tell you all the configuration settings that are selected in the previous step. Then click on next. Now it is to verify the prerequisite. As I said, prerequisites for domain controllers these days is a static IP address. Um, then it should have it should have minimum base storage and RAM and all that. Uh, then it says all prerequisite checks passed successfully. Click install to begin installation. Do you remember when we were adding the Active Directory domain services role, we selected the option of restart the destination server if required. So once this server now promoted to a domain controller that it has Active Directory role on it, once the installation is completed, it will automatically restart. This can take around 2 3 minutes. I'm going to answer some questions people have. Give me just 1 minute. All right. The AD installation is completed. I'm just going to share my screen so you can see what's going on. Yeah, it just restarted, as you can see on my screen. Meanwhile, I hope Windows 10 you were able to download the ISO for that. Please confirm in the chat box. Guys, are you able to download the Windows 10 ISO? Please confirm. Whoever has issues, I can share the link of Windows 10 ISO with you. Um, Give me 1 second. Does anyone have issues downloading the Windows 10 ISO? Please confirm. Right. Thanks for the confirmation, guys. However, I am going to share the link of Windows 10 ISO group chat later on. As you can see, it is still applying the computer setting, which means Active Directory is applying different services which are associated for or required for the server to function as a domain controller. Um, let's just wait for that to complete. As soon as server boots, I mean, once you're able to log in, we'll create a separate instance, or you can say we'll start installing a Windows 10 client that we have just downloaded using the ISO. Um, but let's first wait for this installation to complete. Of course, we can begin right now, but that will probably add a lot of load on your hard drive and RAM or processor as well on your local PC. So we'll wait for this server to finish the complete configuration. Can you guys mention the RAM? Whoever's on the session right now, I see 13 people, including myself. So all those 12 people who are on the live session, please share the RAM of your local machine. So whatever RAM that you have. So if you have 8 GB, just mention 8 in the live chat. If you have 16, 12, or 24, whatever the size is, just mention that in the chat along with the processor that you have. So I can probably tell you if you have any issues. I can tell you need what you need to do. Kaushik, you have 32 gigabytes. That's great. That's enough, to be very honest, for the entire session, not just Active Directory. In future, we'll have Microsoft 365 as well. That also requires a lot of tools and installation. So, yeah, great. It's taking longer than usual. Generally, it doesn't take this much time. Let's wait for that to complete. Purpose of having a Windows 10 client is that we will be adding that as a client machine. So that can probably explain you how machines behave or are joined on network boundaries and how they are managed by your system administrators within your company. Now the machine is up and running. Stays great. You have 16 GB, Shiba 60 GB, that's great. Now on your login screen down right now on the Windows server, you'll see NetBIOS name that you specified during AD installation backslash the username that was administrator. Same password will be there. However, we are now logging on to this computer as domain administrator or a domain user, not as local administrator, which means this machine is now within a secured boundary of your company's infrastructure. This is no longer a workgroup machine on the public internet. Now this server is configured, right? Um, Before we move to the next steps, I want you to shut down the Windows server, because eventually if this server is running, it will kind of slow down the installation for your client machines, and that's where we need to press RAM that is assigned to the server. So I'm just gonna shut down this server. I'll turn it on once my machine is up and running. Once the server is up and running, you can right click on the server, go to settings, and then you count the RAM so that much RAM could be utilized in future. A 10 controller prefer RAM is at least 4 to 8 gigabytes in a production environment, because it's a testing environment. We'll not be running a lot of machines. We don't have a lot of users, and hence we need pretty less management of or usage of the applications compared to a production environment. So I'm just gonna reduce memory from 4 gigabytes to just 2 gigabytes for this, and then I'll click on processors. I'll just give one processor and one thread for each processor. And I am going to disconnect the C drive. It is no longer required, the ISO file, because server is already configured. Then I will click on OK. Now you can see in my server, the memory allocated is just 2 gigabytes, and number of processors it is going to use from my local host, my local machine, it's just one. Next, as I said, if your Windows 10 ISO is ready, click on File, click on New Virtual Machine, click on Next, click on Next. This time, change the ISO to your Windows 10 ISO, the one that you just downloaded. I've selected the Windows 10 ISO, click on Open, click on Next. For people who have mentioned 8 gigabytes, please change your server to just 1.5 or maximum 2 gigabytes of memory, because that if you continue to operate all those machines at the same time, it will eventually uh, squeeze the memory and processor completely, and you'll have a very bad performance on your local host. So use or optimize the memory as per the requirement. For 8 gigabytes, just specify 1.5 gigabytes of RAM for your domain controller. For client machines, initially we'll just give it 2.5 to 3 gigabytes of RAM for installation purpose. Later on, once the client machines, that is Windows 10, that's installed, we will reduce the memory for that to another 1.5 GB of RAM only. Now it says virtual machine name Windows NX64. It's a default name. I'm gonna change that to end user hyphen W10. That means end user hyphen Windows 10. Specify the location of this virtual machine where it will be stored on the local drive. Then click on next. UI secure boot. Next. Number of processor cores 2 and 2. If you remember, I do, if you have 2 processor cores on your local host, just number of processors option as 1 over here, and number of cores per processor 2. i7 processor, I have 4 cores and 8 threads, which means I can choose to go higher. But if you don't have, that is fine. Use whatever you have, and basis that utilize all the resources to complete the activity. The intention is to get the learning completed and understand the concepts, and not put in money just for the learning sake. I told you guys in the beginning itself, like 3 weeks back when we started these sessions, these are non-monetized sessions. There is no cost or fees associated with the practices or the learning sessions you'll be getting. Everything is absolutely free. It was, and it will always be free. Let's click on next. I'm going to specify 4 gigabytes of RAM. for my usage, because I also have 32 gigabytes of RAM, I have a lot of memory right now. It's barely using 10 gigabytes. I still have around the 25 gigabytes of RAM available. I have 8 GB RAM, justified 2 GB of RAM right now for the virtual machine installation. So we'll move on to the next step. Next, LSI logic, NVMe hard disk, virtual disk. Maximum size, I'm going to give it 40 gigabytes because Windows 11 by default, I think it uses somewhere in the range of 16 to 24 gigabytes of RAM. Bases the installation size of the Windows version. So if you're using Windows 10, probably it will occupy somewhere in the range of 14 to 17 GB of storage on your local drive. If it is Windows 10 Pro, another 2 3 gigabytes higher, and then further as we go to Windows Enterprise. Windows 10 Enterprise, it will probably consume anywhere range of 20 to 24 gigabytes on your local storage. I'm going to specify 40 gigabytes. That's all that we need. As I said, these are lab level activities, testing activities for learning purpose only, not a production environment. So we don't need to specify that much of storage. Let's click on next, and then finish. This will power on the machine and start the installation process. Over here, you could probably see a disk option. This is basically that it is allocating disk storage on your local PC. Meanwhile, while this is ongoing, I'm going to ask some questions over here, and we'll take a quick break. Already done 1 hour session. I think we are left with another 1.5 hours. Um, let's take a quick break of 5 minutes just for the session. I mean, on the YouTube live, I will pause my mute over here. I'm just gonna take 5 minutes break. You guys can also have a quick cup of coffee or and come back in 5 minutes. Now it's 4:08 India time. Please be back by 4:15. All right, guys, I'm back. I hope you all enjoyed the break. Right. So, Catherine, yes, the live session is still on. It was a break of 5 minutes that we took. Now, guys, as you can see on my screen, that's the installation of Windows 10. Uh, we are going to select CD-ROM option because we are going to install Windows 10 using the ISO that we configured. We'll select that and we boot from the CD. Then it will start the installation process just like we did for Windows servers as well. Meanwhile, your Windows server should be off now. The next set of activity would be we'll be installing this Windows machine in VMware. Be using Windows 10 Professional or Enterprise. These are the only two Windows 10 versions or Windows versions that can be joined to a domain. Do remember Windows 10 Home or the home version of Windows 10 or Windows 11 cannot be added to a domain. Now we'll select the default options again and click on install now. As I said, this is going to be a lab environment, so we are not going to enter any Windows product key for this Windows 10. Just I don't have a product key right now. Now, next screen, select Windows 10 Pro and select Next. Again, it's a fresh installation on a machine, so we'll first accept the license agreement, click on Next, and we'll select the custom option, the second option, custom. If we were to upgrade this computer from, let's say, previous version of Windows 7, or from Windows 10 Home to Windows 10 Pro, that is when we select the first option. That is, we're going to upgrade an existing operating system to a new one. However, this machine right now, it's a fresh installation. There's no operating system on this, so we will select the custom option, which means install Windows only. It shows the disk space that I allocated for this virtual machine, which was 40 gigabytes initially. Then click on next, and then it will start the installation process. Right. Again, this Windows installation is going to take some time, maybe around 5 to 10 minutes, maybe more than that, depending upon the processor that you have, your local host, or memory that you've allocated from your local host to this machine. For those who have just tuned in or joined in, we are we have completed a refresher of what we did last week. We configured VMware, we configured Windows Server, we added the role of Active Directory domain server on that Windows Server 2019. Then we promoted that server to a domain controller by means of adding a domain, a forest. Um, if you want, you can just go through a refresher, going back, scrolling back to the start of the session, and do that on a fast forward mode, so you can catch up with the current what's going on right now. Now we are installing the Windows 10 client right now. The activity is basically to understand how a machine is joined to a domain in a company, um, on which you will have a digital identity within your company's infrastructure. Once this machine is installed, we will join this machine to the Active Directory domain, which means this machine will be in control of the administrator of my company, who is going to manage my identity or my company using Active Directory. We'll see how that goes. We'll do a demo and a session of that as we do on this way here. It's going a little slow. Don't know why. Just gonna pause my screen share for a couple of minutes. For those of you that have issues downloading the ISO file or configuring the Windows 10 ISO, Windows 11 ISO file using that software or ISO creator tool, I'm just going to share a link with you. You can directly download the Windows 10 or Windows 11 media from there. Just give me 1 minute here. I'll just paste the link to download. I hope your Windows installation is going smooth and there are no problems with it. Just give me 1 moment here. Please. All right, guys, I've shared the link of uh, the location from where you can download the Windows 10 Pro directly. Whoever is having issues with the Windows media creation tool, or those who are having uh, issues downloading it, please select or download the Windows 10 Pro ISO from that link, the one I've shared in the group and in the live chat as well. I had some issue with my Windows 10 VM, so I had to root that and restart the installation process. I hope you guys didn't have that issue. Let me know if anyone of you started the Windows 10 installation is completed. Is at 7-8% right now. Is my screen visible right now? Do you see my screen? Uh, screen. Yeah, I just wanted to confirm. A lot of issues have been happening today. Issues, internet issues, computer issues, camera issues, screen sharing issues. I just wanted to be absolutely sure here and sync and connected with each other. Guys, can you please share the status of your Windows 10 installation on your VMware? Is it completed for anyone or what? Apart from session today, I am going to publish, I think, if possible, two more videos. One for the DNS court, other one would be for DHCP, and if possible, by tomorrow, I will also set up a quick video of 5-10 minutes wherein how VMware is configured, how Active Directory is installed. Apart from this live session, I know a lot of things happen in the live session and it gets stretched and it's very big to watch the entire video. So in short, I'll create a separate session as well for whatever I'm doing right now regarding a directory, the Windows Server installation, the VMware, the domain controller, the forest configuration, the Active Directory use and computers, the management tools, the DNS setup, client machine, running the client machine to the domain, and then managing the user, the client account using Active Directory. So I'll probably create a video of 10 15 minutes, maybe in separate parts, and I'll probably start tomorrow so that it is easy for people to learn in different blocks rather than just sticking to this, hours and hours and as in when specific probably start. So because a longer video kind of tends to create boredom as well as people skip, and that's where they can miss certain steps that was required. I identified when a lot of people reported that they had issues with VMware, they had issues with the ISO installations, BIOS, and all that. Um, and that's why I'm going to separately rate those sessions as well. And I'm going to publish that tomorrow, so it's beneficial for everyone. My Windows installation is 67% as now. What's the status for installation, guys? Could you please put that in the group chat or chat, please? It is at 75% now. It should probably complete in next 2 to 3 minutes. Great, Kaushik. Installation is complete. Configuration is pending. I there in next 2 3 minutes as well. Others, could you please share the status of your Windows 10 installation? Great, Ahmed. If your installation is completed, just wait for my instructions. Please. Now, up until here, we have how do we install a Windows server? How do we promote a Windows server to a controller? Third, how do we install a client machine? These are all real case scenarios in an operation as an IT admin. These are kind of day-to-day operations that you need to take care of whenever you build a new machine or promote a server to a domain controller. Promoting a server to a domain controller is not a day-to-day activity, but yes, you should know that's the part of the core or the back IT admin. So you should be aware of how to promote a server to domain controller. Then you will probably, not probably, you will have those scenarios when on a day-to-day basis you configure a laptop or a deck for a joinee or somebody who requests for a new machine within the company. Um, Apart from VMware, there are tools, Dune, Endpoint, SCCM, and Hyper-V, uh, installation mediums that you have for configuring it up. So VMware is just one of them, but this is just a way to show you how a client machine is installed and then configured and joined to a domain. That the identity of that machine is within the infrastructure. You can remotely manage that using Active Directory or different management tools. We're gonna talk about them in future. So right now, those installation is almost complete for me. It's just gonna boot and then I will start configuration of it. Connected guys, can you hear me? Thanks. It's almost done. Meanwhile, guys, for those who have installed now, right click. If you see my screen, right click on the Windows machine, select install VMware tools. Once you click right click and click install VMware tools after your machine is up and running, uh, it will install the VMware tools basically for machines which are installed on VMware. They use a specific set of tools to connect to your local machine. These are those tools for now, like uh, connecting local hard drive or transferring from your local host to the VM machine that you have, or to interact with other VMware machines. The where so we have a domain controller and an end user machine which get joined to the domain. We will join that, but for that to complete, we need to ensure that VMware tools are installed. So right click on your machine and select install VMware tools. Then your Windows installation is complete, not screen that you look at right now. Now in the configuration page, let's start with the region. Is this right? I'll change the region to where I am located. You can choose your own region. Whenever you're watching this video, make sure that you select the region you are physically at that specific moment. So I'm going to select India over here where I am right. It's going to take, I think there are a couple of steps after this, and then configuration should be completed for me. For others, for whom it is already completed, make sure that you right click on the machine and install VMware tools to install that. Then click on yes for the keyboard. So I have selected Windows based keyboard. Then click on skip. I don't want the secondary keyboard for my virtual machine. Meanwhile, to catch up with people, I think slightly delayed as compared to you guys. I'm gonna let it this installation continue. I'm gonna power on domain controller now, and I already have other machines on my VMware. So gonna power on one of them so that I can show you how I'm gonna join that machine to the domain. I've given 5 gigabytes of RAM to this Windows 11. Already have it. The processor for domain joining machine is same for Windows 10 or even Windows 7 as well. Okay. TC1 starts, I need to ensure I'm logged in. Before that, when machine is booted up, because for a client to be joining domain, it should be in the same network, same DNS zone or subnet your domain controller. Basically, it should be able to establish connectivity with your domain controller. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna uh, change the subnet, and just like what we did the domain controller, the DNS server, we will point machine's DNS server to the domain server, which means for every resolution or lookup, it will go to domain controller, and that's when domain controller will understand that this machine is part of our network and is eligible to be joined domain. My domain controlling. Just give me 1 minute. Now it's little slower. I'll tell you the reason why, because I have three machines running at this moment. Windows 10 installation had started, my domain controller, and I also have a client machine. That's because Windows 10 installation is taking a lot of time. I am not going for that, and I will join the existing Windows 11 machine I have. Uh, as I said, it remains the same, but three different machines running, a lot of RAM. I'm consuming a lot of RAM PC, which is why it's taking a lot of time. As you can see, my memory is almost 70% used. My because it is being consumed and shared across different virtual machines, it's more than 65-70%. All right, right. My controller should be up and running in seconds. Yeah, so I'm going to log into my domain controller as a domain admin for now, or the admin of the Active Directory. There are different admin roles in Active Directory. The first one is an enterprise admin. Enterprise admin is somebody who has absolute unlimited access within the Active Directory forest. The next role after Active Directory is a domain admin. Domain admins have complete access or absolute unlimited access over a specific domain within a forest. As I explained, forest on the top, then you have domains, child domains, subdomains. So all fall under one umbrella of the directory forest. So you can assume that enterprise admin is at the top, then you have different domain admins for different things. I'm gonna log into this as the administrator, because it's the first or the first domain in the Active Directory. By the first account that is used for configuring the Active Directory for the first time in a company, that account is not a admin, it is also enterprise admin, because that's first admin within an structure. Yeah, my Windows is also up and running. I'm going to show you how I change the subnet of this machine is in the same network or can establish connectivity with the domain controller, which will be using this machine to connect it. Right, my up and running now. We are going to proceed with the same set of procedure for the domain controller. I'm command. I'm going to open prompt. In command prompt, I will check the IP address of this machine over here. Domain controller. Make sure that you open the configuration as well because you need the address of the domain controller, which will be used as DNS server for the client machine. And from over here as well, the client machine's command prompt. I check what's its current IP address. Uh, this is the domain controller. Open the um, IP configuration for my domain controller. So IPv4 address, that's 192.168.93.1. And see the default gateway 192.168.93.2. That is the same for my controller, which means they both are network. It's they have to be the subnet for that the client or DNS server Active Directory to be in sync or on the same subnet so that they can communicate with each other. Over here, I am going to ncpa.cpl so that I can get the oh sorry, not over here. Client machines command open ncpa.cpl, which means the connections. It's gonna open a few seconds. It's running slow and I have a lot of machines running at the same time. So sorry. Right. So these are connections on my client machines right now. I need to select Ethernet, right, and go to properties. Over here in properties section for network and on the client machine, it's taking some time. Right. So these are the Ethernet properties of the default internet connection or network connection on this client machine. I'm going to go to IPv4 address properties. I don't need to change anything. For a client machine to join a domain controller, you don't need a static IP. However, you specify which DNS server to connect to. So in the bottom section of the IP4 properties, I select preferred DNS as the IP address domain controller, which was 192.168.93.134. For you, it will be different. So, the IP address of your domain controller. Either manually enter that or you can copy that allows. 168.93.134. 93. Oops. 93. 134. Click on. Then click on. Now they are in the sub. All right. If you're done up until this step, next step would be to add the machine or the client machine or add it or join it to an active directory domain. Before you proceed on that, you need to understand to join the machine to network domain or a active domain requires this. In this, it will be the domain administrator or the internet admin who can join or who have the access to join this machine to an Active Directory domain. Let's see the next steps. Now, similarly, how we change the client machines, you can go to some properties, open run command, and go to syscstn.cpl. This is the name of the machine. I'm going to click on change, and instead of changing the machine, at the bottom you see member of domain or work. So currently this machine is a public machine. That's fine. Work group. I'm going to change that to a domain. Now, if you remember domain name, that the only domain that I had on my Active Directory was Ankit-Shukla. You might have your own domain that you created when you install the Active Directory. Then click OK. It will give you a prompt with the name and password that is required, or access of an account that is required to join this machine to an Active Directory domain. You see on my screen, you have it over here. Over here, the username would be username or domain name backslash usernames, like how you had that on your domain controller, right? So for myself, Ankit-Shukla, Ankit-Shukla backslash administrator, that's the account. Then the password of your main admin account. And on OK. It's gonna verify the activity, verify whether this account has privileges or access to join this machine to the network or the domain, the Active Directory domain. And if it is successful, it will give me a prompt that says, "Welcome to what domain name that I have." So as you can see on my screen, says, "Welcome to the ankit-shukla.com domain," which means now this machine is joined to an Active Directory domain. Also, when a machine is in work group and it is not joined to a domain, it will have a static name, just a computer name. However, when a machine joins to a network, it, its full name, or you can say fully qualified domain name, QN, changes. So host name will remain as is. However, the fully qualified domain name for a machine will change to machine.domain.com. So in this, for my machine here, the client machine that you see over here, it will change to australia dot ankit-shukla.com. That the domain will be added to the machine name. That's the fully qualified domain name. Host name remain as it is. Now I'm going to click on OK. For a machine domain, you need to restart the client machine. Before we restart, I take you back to domain controller over here. Now I'm going to open Active Directory users and computers. The shortcut that is dsa.ms. You can also click on start and search for Active Directory users and computers, or ADUC, and you'll be able to open that. Now, because that client machine joined to the Active Directory domain, it will be listed as an object, or you can say identity within my Active Directory, and I will have the access to my as the computer, or you can say the system or network administrator. You see here, this is my Active Directory users and computers. This is my Active domain over here. I'm going to click search, the second last option over here, and I'm looking for, I only have added a machine over here. So users or contacts, I'll select computers, and I'll just enter because I only have two machines. Yes, I know the machine name. I can type in machine name and click on search. You see this, the first DC-work, of course, that's the domain control. That is also a machine which is on Active. This first over here, this is the client machine that I've just to the Active Directory domain. This is the host. This is the DNS name, or you can say the fully qualified domain name of this machine. I have all the configuration, what version it is used, which groups is part of, who's going to manage that. It is not yet specified. You can manage that as well. Operating system versions, locations of in general, or information. So basically, this machine is in control of the Active Directory administrator now. and they can manage. That's how management of machines and users is done in an organization. Now, this menu over here is asking for a restart because it's just trying to get an active domain. So I'm going to restart it right now. While it's starting, I'm just going to configure my installation that I did an hour back. I don't know why it's taking a long time. Now, second, my Windows server is promoted to directory and it was promoted as controller. It was a group server, which means no local accounts could be to log into that machine, or only the domain accounts, only the company accounts can access the machine, which is joint directory domain. So one restarts the client machine over here, I log in as my domain administrator. Now, assuming an IT employee has just joined the company, configured the machine for them, you join that machine to the domain, they will own set of identity, which means they will separate username and password, their own credentials. They will not use yours to log in, right? Because you are domain administrator, higher privileges than compared to the end user. You will create an identity for them to log into the computer, and that identity, just like the computer's identity, will manage using active. So I'll go back to my domain here, and under my domain, I have organization units. Organization units are nothing but like departments in your company or different geolocations. Um, let's say let's say for example, this machine that I created, it's for a new HR employee, some HR, human resources. So for that, I will have in an existing environment, I will have an organization unit over here, which is HR, and this HR will have the end user who has just signed me. I'll go to new over here, user. Now I need to define the identity of a user. Identity, combination of different attributes like first name, last name, their name, their login account. So just gonna mention something um, Rahul, last name Gandhi. There's an absolute hype, not referencing to any politics. So I define the user logon name as R Gandhi, which means while logging on to a domain machine, they need to use R Gandhi. It's not their first name. So you guys have email addresses, right? Gmail, Outlook, and all that. There are two parts of email address. One is the domain suffix, which means after the symbol is suffix, and then your domain is anything before the at symbol. So the user logon name is of domain suffix or the username exactly that you'll be using to log into the main join machine. I'm going to click on next. Next page, I'm going to specify a password for them, which they will be using to connect to my network or log into the machine. I am going to specify that this password will expand the first login. So as soon as they log this password, prompted to change the password. I'm going to specify user change password at the next logon. I'll click on next and finish. Okay, it is password policy. All right, right. So this has been created over here in my Active Directory environment. Actually will have a digital identity now, which is created in the Active Directory. It is part of my company's or my organization structure. Now I'll go back to this client machine over here. As you can see, it's a local user account over here because it's now joined to a domain. Click on other user. At the bottom, right below the password section, credential, it shows me the. I'm going to log into the domain through this domain joint PC with domain user account. So that was R Gandhi, and then I'm gonna enter the password that my system administrator gave me. I'm going to click on OK, and as you can see on the screen, it says password must be changed before the first sign. The network admin, the system admin defined that the user, whatever the temporary password is, they have to change that at the first log. So I'm going to give my password over here as end user twice, and then click on OK or enter, and it will. Now this user's password is what's happening behind the scene is that it tried to join the domain network, however, to log into the net. It tried to log into the network. However, uh, the admin specified that whenever you log in successfully for the first time, the temporary password, you have to change the password. When I changed the password, basically what happened is that this client machine communicated with the domain controller and then communicated the new password encrypted in a way that domain controller can understand. Domain controller was able to update the new password that I specified while changing it and update in its Active Directory database that this is the new password. Basically, in raw text, like whatever the password is, it's not written over there, it's encrypted or hashed, like star symbols that you see whenever you type your password. It's hashed in a way and stored in the database that only Active Directory can understand that. No human can retrieve that password, nobody can see that password. So that's basically that your digital identity within the organization is secured and safe. Then click on OK. If you see, login, it's going through the login process right now. My display name is starting to show. This display name is the same that I defined in Active Directory. Which means even the so the attribute values for or any identity, be it a user, a shared account, or a computer account, is controlled by a Active Directory. Now it is going through the log. You can see. Let's wait a few minutes, see how it goes. I hope you guys are able to follow up as to what I'm explaining right now. And if you have any doubt, please ask while we're proceeding in this. Finish the installation of the Windows 10 that is still pending. it is still completing the configuration because the user account Windows 10 and 11 have those features wherein configure or set up your complete settings once you log into the computer for the first time. So Rahul Gandhi, it's a new user, logged onto the machine that was allocated to him by the system admin, and he is logging in. So it is configuring his profile basis the information that's the directory and configuring or setting for him to log in for the first time. All right, guys, we are in the last part of today's session. It has been a pretty healthy one. The last part, it's very short. We are going to cover DNS, some part of Active Directory DNS, how it functions, what are the records. Um, so let's take a quick break of 5 minutes, and I'll be right back. So right now it's 5:15. I will be back at 5:20. Thank you. Alright, guys, I'm back. It seems the machine is. Oh, it is there now. So my Windows 11 is now configured, and I can see that this machine is no more a group machine. It is a domain join machine. Confirm that by going to command prompt, and I will just type who am I. It will tell me who is the user which is logged on to this machine. So it says R Gandhi, but it also says the domain name or the NetBIOS name over here. This completes the activity for creation of a user account, join machine to the domain. Then last part for today's session would be to check the DNS management through Active Directory. DNS management through Active Directory is a big topic, but I'm just going to summarize that in very short words. As I explained in my previous video, DNS or the resolver server holds the authority because this is within a closed perimeter of your company's network only. Your DNS server is the authoritative server, uh, which holds the information about the host names, the website addresses, and the cache information as well for all the hosts, websites, or machines, or different servers or different machines across the entire domain. To access DNS panel, I'll go to manage. Sorry, I'll go to tools, and I'll go to my DNS over here. This opens my DNS manager. My domain controller is the DNS in this case. I'm going to expand that section, and you see there are different zones over here that I explained in my second of what are DNS zones. You will see the forward lookup zones. You'll have the reverse lookup. I have not configured that yet. Different trust point and conditional forward. Now in the forward lookup zone, it shows my Active Directory integrated zone. If I expand that, you will see different host names which are joined to this domain and what are their IP addresses. This is the forward zone. If you remember, in the forward zone, you translate or convert or identify or label a host name to an IP address. Over here, DC1 I have my domain controller. So DNS that creates an entry with a record. For DNS record, I'm going to create a separate video. But for now, understand hosting websites are referred as a record, DNS zone a record. I'm sorry, DNS a record. It has an IP address, which means if anyone pings this server or accesses the server, the Active Directory will identify the host names using IP address. That's what the job of authoritative server is. It gives you IP address of the host, the machine, or the website. So, and similarly, the that I joined the client machine, Fed-Australia, the Windows 11 machine, on which I created a user and he was able to log in. It also has an host A record and it has an IP address which is stored in DNS. All right. Timestamp for the IP addresses shows it has a private IP, my domain controller, and the client machine has dynamic IP. I will explain static and dynamic IPs in the next video I'm going to publish tonight, probably in the section of DHCP, that is Dynamic Host Configure Protocol. So everything within the company's infrastructure, be it the host, website, client machines, are identified and stored in the DNS of the Active Directory server. Users, objects, machine entries, groups are stored in the Active Directory users and computers. That was all about today's session, guys. To summarize it all, we were able to create Windows Server. We were able to install Windows Server on it. We had to assign start IP as a prerequisite for install Active Directory role. when we were able to install the Active Directory role, we were able to promote that server to a domain controller. Domain controller is the first server within an uh, IT infrastructure. Then, once that domain controller was configured, we able to we were able to first create a client machine. After that, then we changed the subnet of that client machine so that it is in same subnet network and communicate with the domain controller. Then we added machine to the Active Directory domain. Once that machine was joined, we created a new user using Active Directory users and computers. We created a new password for it. Then that user account, the client user account, the end user who does not have any admin within the organization, was able to log in after changing the password on the first login. When they were able to log in, the machine is configured. And how we were able to consider they are logged in using the user account by going to command prompt and running mi, and it shows the domain name backslash username, which is a party domain. Then we went to controllers, and I should have new glimpse of the DNS management in Active Directory domain. Basically, this lab session was to focus on your understanding about how IT infrastructure works within a closed or restricted set of networks, how devices are managed, how machines are or servers are ported to a domain controller, how do you configure an Active Directory forest, how do you join machines to a domain, how do you manage user accounts in an Active Directory, and how the machines are stored or created or added in the DNS management of the Active Directory or in a restricted IT infrastructure. That's the end of session for today, guys. I hope you liked, right, and learned something new. Uh, Make sure to revisit the video by understanding. So the more the more you watch closely the video from start to end, the better you will understand how things work in an IT infrastructure. It also gives you a hands-on experience basis how to manage, how to you know um, land up a job, or how to or understand what are the functions of a system administrator or a network administrator in an IT sector or a company. Um, the next episodes would be focused on records, DHCP, and a separate split session, split videos of whatever we do today, so that it is easy for people to understand. I understand long videos can be boredom, can be little challenging for people to focus on, and that's why I'm going to create separate sessions dedicatedly on different modes of pre-installation, machine joining, activity use on computers, and DNS management as well. That is all for today, guys. I really want to appreciate for your time and patience for joining this session today. I hope you were able to gain some knowledge. And I'll see you in the next video. Thank you and have a great day.